What up YouTube? Today we're going to go through how to change the oil on a two-stroke dirt bike. I have a YZ250. If you don't have a Yamaha, like you've got like one of the old Honda or Suzuki or Kawasaki, KTM, Husky, Gas, whatever, the other brands, if you don't have the exact same bike as me, it's not a big deal. It's basically the same operation. I'm going to give you some tips on how to change the oil and hopefully also how to make it a lot easier. So the first tip I'm gonna give you is, I've got the bike on the triangle. I don't have the bike on a stand. And the reason that is because if the bike's on the stand, it's way harder to get the oil pan in a convenient location. They make holes with make stands with holes in the middle. Those don't work very well in my experience. The holes just don't really, unless you get the bike just perfectly positioned on the stand, it's hard to get the oil to flow through that hole in the top. And it's even harder to get a regular sized oil pan to fit underneath because it just doesn't. The stand's not large enough to accommodate an oil drain pan. Let's get to it. Step one, get some gloves on. Cool. Second step is you need a socket wrench, specifically a 12mm socket wrench. Now that you got the 12mm socket wrench, I don't know if you can see underneath the bike. It's really hard even for me to see, but there's a bolt underneath right there where my finger is. Just take this 12mm socket, loosen the bolt up, and just make sure the oil goes into the drain pan. I have no idea if y'all can see this, but we're gonna give it a shot. There we go. I usually like to just break it loose with the socket, and then the rest of the way I just go with my fingers. And oh, and by the way, leave the plastic cap on, because then the oil won't flow out quite as fast and like splash everywhere. It'll create a little bit of a vacuum in here. To get the rest of the oil to flow out, if I can hold this in a way that it doesn't get oily, is loosen it off like that, and the rest of the oil should come out. There is one thing you also should do, because it's on a triangle. You notice how it's leaning over. Best thing is take the bike, kind of rock it back and forth so that it's level, and that way the rest of the oil comes out. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm just rocking the bike kind of back and forth and getting the rest of the residual oil out of the gearbox. And I just kind of rocking back and forth like that, and a little bit more oil comes out. But for the most part, I don't know how well you can see it, but most of the oil does look like it's out. It's just kind of a few drops here and there. It's like a real small stream coming out. When you do set the bike down, since it's on a triangle, assuming you have a triangle, just make sure the triangle didn't fall out when you set it down. The next real step is just to put the oil drain bolt back in. Sometimes there's a washer on these. Usually if it's a copper washer, you can replace it. My washer stayed on. I'm not gonna replace my washer. I've never replaced these. I know you're supposed to. I guess I just like to live life on the edge, so. I know it's hard to see. I don't know what you guys can see while I'm doing this, but yeah, I'm just gonna thread this in. And by the way, also don't use like any kind of torque wrench while doing this. Oh my God, please go in. I think I actually have to get on the ground to do this because, come on baby, there we go. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. If you got a shop or a bike shop with a hydraulic lift and you can just get the bike at eye level, just use one of those. I don't have one. Once it stops threading in, I just get it a little hand snug and kind of just go one little notch, one little movement, and you kind of just got to feel it. I mean, I didn't use any kind of torque wrench like I said, but it's just one of those things you got to feel out. You definitely don't want to over tighten it, but you know, you don't want oil spilling on the dirt when you're going down the dirt bike track for sure. So next step is to add the engine oil. I have 500 mils of Shell Rotella T4 15W40. Not the best filter. That doesn't really fit inside this hole, but not a filter, what am I talking about? Get a better funnel than me. The gearbox takes 750 milliliters of oil, and I just have to put in an extra 250 because this thing only holds 500. So I'll put the first 500 in, go refill it, and then I'll put the last 250 in. People argue back and forth about engine oil. Just change it. 10W40, 15W40. I think it's just important to change the oil, you know, on these every 5, 10, 15 hours, whatever type of riding you do and whatever the service manual calls for. Cool, so let's get another 250 in there. 250 mils of oil. Make sure your funnel's lined up with the hole. Get the oil in there. Oh no. You want to do a better job than me. So yeah, this right here, this is why you need a funnel that actually fits inside this hole. Fortunately, I've got some shop rags, so there we go. See, I don't think too much got all over the place. I think it was just, see, it does kind of run all over the frame, so there we go. Yeah, what does it? Do as I say, not as I do. Can't forget that little black plug, that thing's important. Make sure it's finger tight, that's it. One thing I always do like to do with my oil drain pan is I do like to clean it up, because inevitably I'll put it back in my shed or I'll put it back wherever and something will get set down on top of it and the residual oil will just get all over stuff. So kind of better safe than sorry to just wipe the excess oil out of this area. And also I kind of like to reach underneath and wipe here where the bolt is, just to make sure no oil like seeps into the ground or anything. This bolt is used as an oil check bolt, and the way that it works is to make sure you actually have enough oil in the bike. What you do is you fill the crankcase up with oil, you loosen this bolt here, and then if oil dribbles out of the bolt, what it tells you is that there's a sufficient amount of oil in the gearbox so that the clutch, the other components, can be effectively lubricated. The reason why I don't use this bolt is because in the past on my old bike, my Husky TC125, in the process of me loosening and retightening the oil check bolt so many times, it eventually stripped. And if it strips, it's just a nightmare, because the only way to fix it is to try to do like a helicoil repair, or if you don't want to get that little metal piece stuck inside your gearbox, then you just have to replace the whole inner clutch cover. And it's just a pain. It's money you don't want to spend. It's just time. It's just something you don't want to deal with. Instead of using this oil check bolt, you just never use the oil check bolt, and you just measure out precisely the amount of oil that you put back into the engine when you do an oil change. For my bike's case, it's 750 mils. I'll never use this oil check bolt because I don't need to. It's just unnecessary, and it's a strip hazard, essentially. I do not use the oil check bolt, and I do not recommend you use the oil check bolt either, unless you just have a lot of confidence in your ability not to strip the female threads that are machined into the inner clutch cover. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. I'm not a master mechanic by any means, but changing your oil is really simple, especially when you've got a two-stroke. Just have confidence in yourself. Working on your bike saves you so much time, and it saves you so much money, and it really makes you feel like you can, you're taking ownership and you're taking good care over, your really expensive dirt bike. If you have any questions about changing oil or just really any mechanical question, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments. Like I said, be confident, have fun, learn to be your own mechanic. Peace.